Give me the thumbs up when you're ready to roll. Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Board Work Session for March 6th, 2018. Please rise and join me for the pledge, and please remain standing. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing as we have a moment of silence for some very sad news that we received this week. One of our own residents, Dr. Barry Shapiro of Briarcliff, was killed this past Friday in a freak accident with a fallen tree as a result of the storm. We send our deepest condolences to his family and friends. We know he touched many. Okay, I'm going to hold off on announcements until our special meeting and jump right into the work session. Our first topic tonight is the SPCA contract with the town of Ossining. And we have SPCA Director Shannon Lokoff here to give us some information. It seems with every new board, we get questions about this contract in particular, and Shannon is always gracious enough to come meet with us and respond to the board. We have also asked Shannon to give us and the public some details on the pending rehabilitation of the SPCA facility, scheduled to begin in 2019. Shannon?
Hi, good evening. Thanks so much for inviting us here tonight. I'm Shannon Laukoff, and I'm here with Sandra Dudzik, who's our Director of Operations. I had some packets for you if you'd like them to hand out with some statistics and just information on our program.
Great.
So just to give you a little history, the SPCA of Westchester is one of the oldest humane societies in the United States. We were formed in 1883, and we're also one of the oldest landholders in Briarcliff Manor. We're still on our original site. The SPCA was started by an Ossining resident. Her name was Mary Dusenberry, and that was to battle the abuses of workhorses in Ossining Village. They were charged with dragging heavy burdens, loads of coal, which was pretty typical of the day. We were originally called the Sing Sing branch of the ASPCA, but in 1926 we all became independent organizations. So one of the biggest misnomers about us is that we are the ASPCA of Westchester, and that is actually not true. We have no affiliation with the ASPCA, nor do we get any funding from them. But the SPCA has been contracting with the town of Ossining for many, many decades. And basically, per the terms of our contract, we're here to accept delivery of stray dogs and cats from your residents, from representatives of the town, such as police or animal control, which you don't have currently, but other representatives. We also accept owner surrenders, which is a bit dependent upon space, but we too take them as well. So in your packets, there's some statistic just on the number of animals we've taken in over the last 4 years. Just to give you just a little bit of background there. We do not accept feral cats per the contract, but we do have something called trap, neuter, return. So that means if a resident brings us a feral cat, we'll spay or neuter it, and then they pick it up and it's re-released back to the area whereby it was found. We're also a no-kill shelter, so that means basically that we never euthanize an animal for length of stay or for any type of space situation. So pretty much adoptable animals have a home with us for life until they hopefully find a loving family sooner rather than later. Do you want any information on our programs or?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Do you want to?
I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the programs. So our shelter services, as a no-kill shelter, we're committed to caring for all adoptable animals till a loving home is found. In 2017, we adopted out 1,300 animals into their forever homes. We contract with 12 municipalities to accept stray cats and dogs to return to their owners or to arrange for adoption. We have a full-time behavior and enrichment coordinator who promotes activities and training to help the animals in our care thrive in a shelter environment and learn skills that help prepare them for life with a forever family. We also provide public low-cost veterinary care. So we're the only animal shelter with a freestanding spay-neuter clinic on site. Through our Simpson Clinic, we offer low-cost services to the public, and that includes spay-neuter, dental, exams, vaccines, and testing. In 2017, we spayed and neutered more than 1,200 owned pets and feral cats and provided preventative care services to over 1,500 pets in the community. Since establishing our clinic in 1983, we've spayed and neutered more than 60,000 dogs and cats. We also assist local cat rescue and municipalities by offering spay-neuter surgeries to feral cats through our trap, neuter, and return program. We also have a Golden Outreach Pet Therapy program. So SPCA volunteers take our specially trained dogs and cats to hospitals, hospices, assisted living centers, nursing homes, and adult daycare centers. This allows us to bring people and animals together to combat loneliness and depression. In 2017, 50 volunteer dog teams were trained through this program, and they went on an average of 65 visits per week to local healthcare facilities. We also have our cruelty investigation and intervention. So through our Humane Law Enforcement Division, the SPCA is the only shelter authorized by New York State to enforce the laws as they relate to animal cruelty, and that's in Westchester and neighboring counties throughout the SPCA. Last year, nearly 1,500 calls concerning animal neglect and cruelty were received by our confidential animal abuse hotline. In 2017, more than 50 animals who were victims of abuse or neglect were safely seized by our Humane Law Enforcement Unit. For our volunteer program, we have over 300 dedicated volunteers who participate in the daily walking and training of our dogs, as well as working in our cat care program to make our animals more adoptable and reduce their emotional isolation during their stay at the shelter. Volunteer opportunities include fostering, grooming, greeting visitors, helping potential adopters through the application process, providing support to the office and clinic staff, helping with our fundraising efforts, as well as various beautification programs. We also do educational outreach. Our Humane Education Program staff and volunteers provide nearly 70 educational presentations to the children in area schools and youth-related groups. Our shelter also participates in the Westchester County District Attorney's Task Force for Humane Education. Our popular Camp Critter program has welcomed thousands of children ages 6 through 12 who get to learn about sheltering, animal care, animal cruelty, and how they can make a difference in the lives of homeless animals. We also have a domestic violence and pet safety program. So since 2008, the SPCA and My Sister's Place partnered to create a pet safety program. This program is only one of a handful in the nation and was developed out of the need to help victims seeking refuge from domestic violence. In many situations, these people are unwilling to leave out of fear for their animals' safety. This program allows people who are staying in a My Sister's Place shelter to leave their pets with an SPCA foster family during the difficult time.
Just quickly, have any of you ever been to the SPCA or adopted from us? Yay! Oh, fantastic. So perhaps you've noticed that our buildings are very old. Our facilities are crumbling. I like to say that you can see the love coming through the cracks. You know, so much has changed in animal sheltering over the last decade, and we really do a good job enriching animals, rehabilitating them, but we're really limited in the services we can offer with the current facility that we have, which I don't think has been renovated since probably the 1960s or 70s. So the really exciting news is we recently hired an architect. We have a set of plans that we're really excited about. We're about to launch a capital campaign and go out and raise those funds that we need to rebuild. We are going to be going to the planning board very soon in the months ahead just to get approval. We're currently just completing, we have a lot of site work to do. We have wetlands on our facilities, so there's a lot of surveys that we just have to complete. But I'm really, really excited to announce that we were approved just a couple days ago. We found out for a $500,000 grant through the governor's New York State Companion Animal Capital Fund. So that is absolutely thrilling, and that's a huge lead gift for us to go out and start raising all this money. So we're absolutely thrilled. So we're hoping, we're really in process right now, but we hope to break ground sometime early next year, I'd say.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. And so what's the new, do we get a sneak idea of what you're thinking about for your new facility?
Sure. I have those plans. Well, in the new facility, right now, as you've noticed, we have multiple buildings on the property, and not all of our dogs can be locked inside at night. They all have a heated dog house to go into, but in the current building, all the animals will be inside, and they'll have to, they'll go out for walks, and we'll have outdoor pens, which will be wonderful too, because sometimes we have, a lot of barking dogs, and I know that our neighbors will be thrilled that we'll be a little bit more, quiet. We're going to have for the cats fantastic new catteries. We have 3 new catteries, which are sort of communal cat areas. And if you've seen any of those great catwalks on YouTube, they all have scratching posts and climbing facilities and baskets to all sort of socialize in. And the studies have shown that animals really shelter better when they're housed communally. They present better to the public, and the goal is for them to stay with us for a shorter period of time and get them out into loving homes. We're going to have a humane education center for the kids that come in that we teach, the classrooms that come and the scout troops that come. There'll be, it'll be sort of a double center where we can do dog training as well and have a nice dedicated space for our Camp Critter, which has become so popular that the kids love. So we're really excited, and we feel like we're a great resource for the community. We want people to come down on the weekends to just come and see the animals and explore what we have to offer. So that definitely is a goal, and we're going to get there. It's just we're thrilled to be finally moving ahead.
Great. I have one quick question for you before I ask my colleagues if they have any questions, which is about the spay-neuter return program, only because somebody had asked me about it some years ago, maybe 3. Said, oh, you stopped funding the spay-neuter return program. The town no longer has the ability to do that. So can you explain to me why somebody might have said that?
Yeah, well, that the TNR, which we do the spay and neuter, that is above and beyond. It's not actually included in the contract. It's a $50 charge for a female cat and $35 for a male cat, and that basically means that we'll spay or neuter them, we'll vaccinate them for rabies, and we'll give them an ear notch, so they're identifiable. If you see them out in the community and the ears notch, you know that they've been spayed or neutered. So there are Ossining Village and several other municipalities do allocate additional funds for that particular service. I don't know if the population in the town of Ossining is so extreme. Do you have many feral cat colonies?
Maybe.
No,
Yeah.
out in the town outside.
No, not the town.
In the town?
Yeah.
Right.
We had one resident who had said
Yeah,
that there
the
was sort of
village
a
has-
cluster behind her home back
Okay.
on like Incognito or something like that a couple of years back, but that's a while ago. I don't know if they're
Okay.
even still there.
I do know a lot of residents do get attached to some of the feral cats, and they will take it upon themselves to come in and to do the surgery and just to pay the extra fee, and then they'll release them back on their property and continue to feed the cats.
Mm-hmm.
And the studies have shown that that's really the best method of population control. The altered animals kind of keep newcomers out, and they sort of form their own colony. But I'm not.
Did the town have that contract that included that at any point?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Curious.
But we're here if should you ever consider that, or if the need grows greater. There were a bit of a little bit of a surge in stray cats. If you look at the 2017 numbers,
Right, I did see that. Yeah.
we are working a lot with more local rescue groups in the area, and they are really fantastic. And perhaps I think they may have been out and about and picking up the cats and bringing them in. So that could be why that is.
Got it. Okay. What about?
Any other questions?
Do you have any idea how many colonies there are in the village of Ossining?
I don't personally know that. I know that there have been some I guess meetings that have been happening in the village of Ossining. There was a group from the HSUS who came and talked to the
I
town.
know about those colonies. I just, Okay, so you don't have like a number of the total?
I believe I would want to say maybe 3, perhaps 3 or 4, but I don't have all the latest information.
Okay.
But there are fantastic volunteers who are out there, caring for these cats and tending to them and ensuring that they're not breeding and making more cats. So
And which other municipalities do you have contracts with you?
for animal for accepting animals. So there are 12 other municipalities. So everyone from White Plains on up to Peekskill, basically on this side of the county. White Plains, Croton, Pleasantville, Sleepy Hollow, Portland.
Awesome. Questions?
Okay.
Great job, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Forward to having
for
you
my dog.
continue to be our neighbors, our good
Thank you for
neighbors.
adopting.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so the next topic for our work session, the week of President's Day, several of us headed into Times Square for the Association of Towns annual meeting, 2018. Councilwoman Feldman, Councilwoman Shaw, Judges Tawil and Reisman, Maddie and myself made the trip in. For the rest of us, we've been there before, but Councilwoman Shaw and our receiver of taxes, Holly Perlowitz, it was their first time around. So as usual, we tried to cover as much ground as possible, divide and conquer, I guess. And we all sat through different workshops, and there's a lot of material to digest, but we thought we'd take a few minutes tonight to let everyone share their takeaways from the event with one another and with our residents. So, I'd like to start.
I'll start.
All right, fantastic.
I just highlighted a few of the ones that I thought were interesting. The first one I thought was interesting. There was a seminar. It was called Working Together for a Better New York. And it was about shared service initiatives that are going on in different municipalities, whether it's between municipalities or between different organizations to lower costs and improve services. So they had some interesting ideas. And also combining functionalities, the use of technology, and consolidating departments. So I thought that was interesting. Also, the shared infrastructures and shared facilities and cooperative agreements and how we can work with different municipalities to improve services and reduce costs. Another one that I went to was inclusive programming, and it talked about that 1 in 5 Americans has a disability, and as you upgrade or create new spaces that we need to be taking into account, are they accessible to all of our residents? So there are things that we can do, such as purchase of equipment, offering assistance, auxiliary aids, structural changes, things like that. And then the last thing, when we walked around and talked to vendors, because I came from Rexon Park, there were some interesting ideas on upgrades we could do to the playgrounds. There were musical equipments that are for outdoors that were really interesting, and there were outdoor fitness equipment that we can get people out there. We're trying to encourage a healthier Ossining, and these different types of equipment are inclusive, and they get people outside and moving.
And I have to just add that of the collections of brochures that I took, most of them are about playground equipment
Right.
and musical instruments, because I know that that's something that has come to the attention of the advisory board.
Right.
So I was sure to take whatever looked good, and there could be a nice sampling of materials that you guys could review as we move forward to consider recommendations for improving our parks and adding some different types of equipment, including adult fitness equipment as well.
That's funny, Jackie, and I also got all the books from all the different places. That well, so now we have 3 copies, so that, she brought it for the rec advisory board. I got one for that we could share, and now you have another, so that's great. At least we're all on the same page
I was gonna
on
say, we're all on the same
exploring,
page.
the
Absolutely.
possibilities.
Yeah. So,
All right, so going on.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess I'm going to start with the feral cats. I went to a lecture on feral cats because it's been a growing problem across New York. There are a lot of towns and municipalities have groups of up to 100 cats each, which is really not uncommon, which is amazing. And very few places have programs that handle that. So this was presented by people who are more in favor of no cats ever being let out, and there's a whole bunch of different, and it was about saving the birds. That feral cats and household cats let out eat a lot of birds, and it's a problem. They're really decreasing the bird population. So some of the management options that they had talked about were education, spay and neuter incentives with people's own pets, trap, renew, and euthanize. A lot of communities choose to round them up and kill them. I'm not a fan of that. Trap, neuter, return, which is what we do. And non-surgical contraception, where it seems you try to get them to eat birth control in their food, which I can't really imagine is very effective, where the people who are feeding them are asked to do that. They don't find that very effective. It turns out we are one of less than 5% of the communities do trap, neuter, return. And when I had a conversation with him afterwards, he was amazed at the numbers that we are able, that, the group at the boat club is 5 cats. And I did speak with one of the, Paula Garber, who helps with some of our community. She said the largest one she knows of is, I think, 7 to 9 cats. And he couldn't believe it because most those are incredibly small. And it's been that way for years, so he thought that would barely even have a dent in our bird population. So that we are obviously a success, and he's going to rethink the efficacy of the trap, neuter, return program. So I thought that was very positive.
That was.
And that we're doing really good. Another one I went to was about social media and town websites, and boy, was that one packed. I felt like a sardine. My big takeaway is that, our municipal site should have a purpose, and really should be stated that it's not to be used for official communication on the site, which I believe ours has. And it should absolutely, we have to keep records of what we post. And, it is foilable. And they talked about, Children's Privacy Act, and I know in our rec forms, we already have the signatures of anybody interacting in our community programs that, they could be taken a picture of, so I know we're protected there. American Disabilities Acts, all kinds of rights we have to be cognizant of while we do use our social media. And then there was a lot about discipline of employees who choose to use social media to talk about the town in good or bad ways, and how we, how to supervise and, work with your collective bargaining agreements for that. So that was very interesting.
I'm just going to add on one thing because I was at that as well, which I thought was interesting.
You weren't in there.
It was.
You were?
Yeah.
I didn't even see you.
And they talked about that conversations by board members should not be carried out on social media in response to postings. And I know that that some boards do adopt a policy, or at least have an informal policy on that. And I think that that's something that I would certainly advocate for. And again, I just also made note of the same couple of the things that you had talked about, which was crafting a statement, which allows you to delete certain information while maintaining other information. So, and identify who's allowed to manage it, who posts, can take down and put up on your site as well.
Right.
That was just in addition to what you said.
Yes.
But otherwise, I think you did a great job covering it. So thank you.
Okay. Another one I went to was the real cost of roads, which turned out to be a continuation of one that you went to.
Okay.
So I'll let you talk mostly about that, because by the time I got there, they were really just kind of wrapping up everything and talking about life assessment of roads and prevention and preventive maintenance. It ends up much cheaper rather than waiting until they need to be completely repaved. I know that's something that we do, having an inventory, life cycle, annual cost estimates. I know that we do that. One interesting thing, they said that we shouldn't be paving after Columbus Day. That we should probably think about. And the most important thing was that ducks on your roads are an indicator of poor drainage.
Ducks.
So if there are ducks floating on your roads, swimming around on your roads,
Especially if
it's an
they're floating.
indication.
Yes.
No, yeah,
Floating
if they're swimming along on your roads, it's
Floating
an
around.
indication of poor drainage.
For sure.
So, and the last one was the tax exempt properties, not-for-profits. And Maddie went to that one with me, and I would probably like her to talk more about it. That was the one where the pilot agreements, we could have pilot agreements with not-for-profit. So I think that, like, for instance, Boston has so many colleges, and they're all that land that all those colleges on is exempt from property tax.
Right.
So they have kind of a standard form pilot agreement that colleges will pay in lieu of taxes, X amount.
Right.
We do have a lot of different properties, be them religious, state
Not-for-profit,
penitentiary, or whatever, that
not-for-profit.
are not-for-profit. I do feel that we get a lot from many of them. We do have agreements with some of them. Mary Knoll giving, they give back in other ways, but we can always look at talking to them about what they can offer the town in lieu of them paying their property taxes like everybody else does. I know Maddie and I were saying that that sounded like a great thing, and we might want to formulate something that kind of structured that out for more not-for-profits coming in.
Yeah, and she'd shared that with me, and I thought that sounded really interesting, so that everybody would, the other taxing jurisdictions in Austin. Great. Thank you. That's fantastic. Maddie?
I was just thinking as Councilwoman Shaw and Councilwoman Feldman were talking, I was like, wow, I went to all like the Debbie Downer ones because everything I went to was super depressing. So the first one I went to was about surviving a PESH audit, which this board knows we went through.
And survived.
And survived. And so, as you know, we are working with an outside service who's writing a lot of these programs for us, and we actually just scheduled the training for the guys for this year for April 11th. So as far as I can tell, we are in compliance, we're doing everything right, and that's another takeaway that I have from this almost each and every year is how many things the town is doing right. Just sort of getting that affirmation is helpful. Sometimes you learn something that, you have to rush back and work on, which brings me to the Affordable Care Act, which is how I learned about the Affordable Care Act back many years ago. And the board also knows that we're working with a consulting firm who was the presenter at this particular program. They often are. They are an incredible wealth of knowledge about this very, very complex set of laws and basically what our responsibilities are under the laws. They're able to answer any question, and they frequently do for me. They know me by name and face by this point. So that was a good refresher. Bouncing back to...
Did they talk about the changes that that they anticipate, or how something like that might roll out?
I remember a couple of years ago, them, prior to the election saying, well, depending on who the next president is, we might not have to worry about this anymore and so on. And everything is still sort of in a state of flux. They talked a little bit about how New York State, or one particular, I don't know if it's a state senator, is pushing for single payer health care in New York State and sort of like the pluses and minuses and how sustainable that might actually be. So that was sort of an interesting conversation. But, they're very good about keeping us updated on, when we have forms that need to be submitted and that kind of stuff. So certainly if anything else is coming down the pike that we need to know about, I trust that they will have our back on that. Bouncing back to the one that we sat in together about the fiscal stress survey, I had actually forgotten that was also the positive one that talked about the community benefits agreement and the pilots. I was just remembering the frog in the pot. They gave us all of these very depressing stickers about how the tax cap in New York State is completely unsustainable because it was a study from Cornell University. It was actually a fantastic presentation by a bunch of undergraduate students and their professor, and they were so incredibly polished and knowledgeable. They put me to shame. But they were talking about how it's unsustainable because of how debt and certain other things aren't exempt from the tax cap, and how basically it is discouraging communities from investing in their infrastructure, which means then your infrastructure gets worse, and then you don't have the money to pay for it when it comes time to do that. So they had a couple of recommendations of how New York State might model tax caps in other states. That was sort of interesting. But then there was the second piece of it where they sort of talked about negotiating and navigating the world of community benefit agreements and pilots with some of your nonprofit or tax-exempt properties, and also the establishment of special districts. As the board knows, if you have a pilot agreement, which is payment in lieu of taxes, you're not allowed to get a pilot on special districts. So if there's something in your community, I think they were talking about Syracuse University, for example, that had a whole bunch of properties in a certain area, and they started a sidewalk district.
I think it's Cornell.
Cornell. So in order to...
no, you're right. Syracuse did the sidewalk district.
Yeah, in order to pay for the maintenance on those sidewalks that the university might otherwise not have had to pay for, they created a special district for the sidewalks. So that was just sort of a different mechanism that they used. So there was a lot of really interesting stuff in that presentation as well. And the last one, which we talked about at our staff meeting last week, was disciplinary action for employees. And it's sort of difficult because I think a lot of department heads, not exclusively in the town, but when you're dealing with union employees, are a little bit gun shy, for lack of a better term, because, you know, I need my union rep and, you know, this needs to be documented and so on and so forth. So they had a labor attorney there who was explaining to the group about the difference between a disciplinary action and a counseling session. So in a counseling session, it's a little bit more informal, and we sort of discussed, you know, the ins and outs of what something like that looks like. And that's something that I shared with our department heads at this past staff meeting, to sort of encourage them and say, hey, listen, if you're having a problem that's not, you know, egregious, but something that, you know, we need to correct, here's how you go about doing it in a way that, you know, make sure that we're keeping the paper trails that we need. And so hopefully we're going to get that message out there, you know, a little bit more formally to our department heads so that they feel armed to do what they need to do.
Great. That's fantastic. And actually, I was at a Westchester Municipal Officials board meeting last week, and I found out that one of the things that when they went up to Albany, I guess the week before, to talk to the legislature and the governor, one of the things that they did talk about was exempting capital from tax cap, as has been done for schools, but has not been done for municipalities. And they were basically told, don't ask that again. You've asked that every single year, and stop asking that. So as much as we would like to continue to see those sorts of efforts to help sustain towns and villages and cities put in place, it doesn't seem like we're going to be getting the support from our state government on that. And just to follow up on that, I did attend the annual meeting of the Association of Towns, which is when we get to vote for the new officers for the Association of Towns, as well as on resolutions that will be the legislative program or the issues that basically rise to the top for towns that we're asking the Association of Towns on the behalf of all the member towns of the association to advocate for in Albany or in Washington. So just quickly, we voted for Supervisor Cheryl Horton from the town of Philadelphia, Jefferson County, to be the new president. And she did receive the nomination and the votes, as well as Town Justice Tony Provenzano from the town of Rye for first vice president. Basically, all these people kind of just moved up. Becca Haynes from the town of Ellery will be the new second vice president. She's the town clerk there. Supervisor Ed Tebald from town of Manlius, Onondaga County is the third vice president. And I think I'll stop there because you probably don't want to know all the rest. We did vote on the budget as well. We accepted the budget for the 2018 for the Association of Towns, which is about $2.5 million. And the revenue and the expenses seem to match up, which is great. And then we adopted the following resolutions, which included state support for local highway administration and basically calling on the governor and the legislature to increase the base funding for the CHIPS program, Consolidated Highway Improvement Program, Pave New York and Bridge New York. And that's the main ask there, is that we're not really getting enough money, and this continues to be the theme for maintaining our infrastructure. And then there were a couple of items that were cited. Also, to fund, Resolution 2 is fund local water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. You can see the theme continues. Strengthening state relations through mandate relief and revenue sharing. Again, the theme continues because what we're saying here is, as you continue to vote on laws to protect New Yorkers, make sure that there isn't a price tag attached to that law that's going to hit us at the municipal or the school level, which is going to increase local taxes. And there's no relief coming from the state for that. So we continue to advocate for mandate relief, and all of these resolutions did pass, by the way. Improve cemetery operations, revenue and abandonment process, and address local impact. That's something that we can relate to here in the town of Austin, because we did have a situation where we had to adopt a cemetery, because the association that was running the cemetery wasn't able to do that anymore because of their finances. So basically, we're asking for the state to give us resources to help associations like Dale Cemetery Association to continue to exist so that towns don't have to take over those cemeteries because it becomes a burden on the public. A resolution to enhance the ability of publication of legal notices, so you don't have to just publish in paid subscriptions, but can publish in other subscriptions that have wide distribution, even if they're not paid, and this would reduce costs for towns. To reform the inequities in the property tax cap formula, which I actually discussed already, so that it would exempt such expenditures that would improve public safety, invest in local infrastructure, address emergencies, acquire and develop open space, result from capital improvements mandated by government agencies, consent orders, and invest in municipal infrastructure to enhance economic capacity, community development. Those all would be exempted from the cap formula. Continue town-initiated intermunicipal and shared service agreements, and we heard a little bit about that from Councilwoman Shaw about how they do benefit, and we are hoping that instead of mandating how those go on, that we are allowed to continue to look for those efficiencies on our own, the ones that make the most sense, and we have done that over the years to a great extent here in Ossining, the town of Ossining and the village of Ossining. We do have some other intermunicipal agreements with the county and with other entities that do benefit all of our taxpayers. Preserve and strengthen home rule, which gives us more power locally and keeps government, other levels of government from creating mandates that unfairly penalize local municipalities. Sales tax distribution, that the Association of Towns calls upon the governor to amend the state tax law to require county governments governed by separately elected legislators to share sales tax revenue with towns and negotiate sales tax allocation formulas with towns. Actually, we have that in Westchester. Local hotel occupancy taxes, allow municipalities to adopt local laws to impose an optional hotel motel occupancy tax. That hasn't really been an issue here in Ossining. Reform the real property tax system so that a well-defined approach to exemption and taxable status state legislation, and provide state funding for any state-mandated or state-encouraged exemption programs in the name of protection of local property tax revenue. Trying to see if there's any other ones that are particularly pertinent. Feel like preserve or restore real property tax, state income tax, and mortgage interest federal income tax deductions. This is a big one. The Association of Towns calls upon the New York congressional delegation to fight to preserve and or restore deductibility of state income tax, real property taxes, and interest paid on mortgages. And we all know that that has been a big issue, which culminated for the town. The early collection of property taxes, town county taxes, so that we could make it easier for people to make those deductions for their 2017 tax returns before SALT goes into effect. Finally, preserve federal income tax exemption for interest earned on municipal bonds. And that was the last one. So that was part of the annual meeting, and that was a large part of why we do go to this convention every year. And many of those actually align with the Westchester municipal officials' legislative priorities as well. I did also go to a conference, workshop on GIS and how you can utilize geographic information systems for asset management for municipalities, and look at how things are spatially and geographically distributed, such as fire hydrants, mains, sewers, parks, sidewalks, roads, streetlight signs, and you can get a lot of information that can help you manage these things using GIS technology. Create inventories, parcel tax mapping with online GIS portals. There's a lot to that we can get from these tools, and it's something that we should look at in more detail. So we'll continue to that. I also went to a workshop on municipal solar codes, which is interesting because I happened to discuss this a little bit with our building inspector today. about how we would maybe want to be proactive about coming up with some municipal solar codes so that when people do want to install large solar arrays on their property, it wouldn't be to the detriment of the community. So they did offer some solar myths and some options for property taxes and pilots that we could consider. I think that what I'll do is I'll just share that, the details with the board, and we can maybe have a further discussion at one of our work sessions and maybe get somebody also in from Sustainable Westchester who might be able to help us out with that.
I was going to say, John Hamilton is scheduled to come to our work session, I think the last one in March.
Okay.
So he said, oh, absolutely, I'd love to come talk about that. So it works out well.
Yeah, it would be great to hear from him and maybe also to get some information from some other folks as well. I did also go to one about vacant and unsafe properties and what we are allowed to do now, basically under the zombie legislation. And it was interesting to hear about what the city of Niagara took 5 banks to court for not maintaining vacant abandoned properties. And they talked about if we have local town registry for vacant properties, violations under law, $500 per property per day. You can't go outside of what's provided in state law. Public officials then would have contact information for banks responsible for vacant properties. If the property owner doesn't comply with citation, town can take care of property and assess costs against the property. So it's definitely something that we might want to consider moving forward is modeling some of our policies and procedures after some of the examples that they learned about from City of Niagara, because I think that they've been kind of out there and taking the reins, addressing some of the zombie properties, which we do have here in the town of Austining. Also, I did go to a very interesting one about understanding smart cities and using basically smart technology like the smart meters that you see Con Ed starting to install, and other smart technology to look at how we run, essentially. It's a little scary because it's a little bit of Big Brother, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to avoid it. So if we can avoid it, how can we make use of it? And again, I got some a really good PowerPoint from them, which I can share with the board, and that would be the best way to do it. And then I also learned a little bit about dirt and new regulations of surplus soil, gravel, concrete, rubble, road millings, ditch cuttings, and scrap metal. And that's a little bit intimidating because apparently this took effect November 4th. There is a phase-in period, but there are a lot of additional regulations which we didn't have to comply with before, and now we do. And in the end, ultimately, it's going to benefit us because it benefits the environment. But there are a great many new regulations about storing surplus soil and anything that goes in it. And we do actually store some of this stuff because we do tend to reuse it. But there are more regulations on what you can reuse and how you can reuse it. So that's something that I've already brought to the attention of our highway superintendent, our parks foreman, and our cemetery superintendent as well. Then finally, there was the road one, which Councilwoman Feldman said that I was going to talk about, so I don't want you guys to miss out on that. But, oh.
That's okay.
Oh, you don't mind? Okay. Anyway, there are lots of good things about roads, but one of the things that we did learn most is that the more proactive you are, the more that you get for your dollars spent. And there's a great relationship between creating better roads to begin with, and then keeping them up versus letting them go so far down and then having to fix them, and only doing like a surface fix, and then you really kind of just throwing good money after bad, or is it? In any case, that's it. And it was a very informative conference. I think that we got a lot out of it. We also had an opportunity to network. And, of course, don't forget the graph. We got free stuff. And, yeah. and lots of stuff to take home. And of course, also got a very nice bag. Okay, so that's Association of Towns. Moving on. Find my notes now since
Yeah,
I
I just
have.
want to add one quick thing is
Okay.
the cleaner walking around to the different booths, the tree booths that we're way ahead of most of the communities in our tree protection, maintenance, inventories, codes. You know, they're like, "Where are you from?" I said, asking. They're like, "You're doing everything. Your guys are great." You know, there's a southern pine beetle that's in New Paltz that we'll be watching for, but it's not in our area yet. And the other one's the clean energy communities, where I think we've done one of the first communities, but we've done pretty much all the things that they want for a clean energy community. So again, every time I go to the Association of Towns meeting, I find that we really seem to be way ahead of many of the other, or most of the other municipalities, and it makes me really proud to be a part of it. So.
Any questions from anybody on the board? All right. Next up. So a few weeks back, we were approached by a resident who lives in close proximity to the Sunshine Children's Home, which is completely in Newcastle, but which shares a border and a sewer lift station with the town of Austining. Mr. Whitlinger, who happens to be here, made several requests of the town of Austining board. Although we no longer have any formal role in the process, we had council look at the revised application before the Town of Newcastle Planning Board to further research the current state of the application and inform us of where, if at all, there is room for the Town of Austining to take action on these requests of the board, if we opted to do so. So I will turn it over to our council, Chrissy Tomadonna. Take it from you.
Yes, so based upon some of the comments that were made by members of the public, I went and took a look at the application materials that were available on the Newcastle website, just to kind of get a better sense of where the application had been procedurally and where we are now procedurally and legally, in order to be able to kind of have a better understanding of what the town board's options, if any, were going forward. So I'm just going to back up a little bit. We have a new member of the board, and it won't take long to just do a brief recap. The zoning board in Newcastle was a lead agency for a coordinated secret review of Sunshine's proposal, which I think we're all familiar with, involves a modification and expansion of an existing facility, among other things. And so in September of 2016, the zoning board adopted a negative declaration under SECRA, finding there's not the potential for any significant adverse environmental impacts. After that, they issued certain approvals that were before that board, specifically for a special use permit, an amendment of an existing special use permit, as well as certain variances related to the application. After that was done, the applicant went to the planning board, where they spent the next year until October of 2017. They were before the planning board for a steep slope permit, wetlands permit, tree removal permit, and stormwater permit. And in relation to those applications, while they were pending before the planning board, it appears that additional modifications were made to the proposal, which, from what I can tell, were intended to further improve the conditions related to the application. The planning board issued their approvals in October of 2017. However, because there had been changes to what had originally been considered by the zoning board, both under SECRA and in issuing the special use permit, which involved their site development plan, they're now back before the zoning board for further SECRA review and for review of an application for an amended special use permit related to those changes. So the zoning board reopened SECRA specifically with respect to those environmental areas that were not impacted, but that were modified, or there were changes to the analysis based upon what was changed during the planning board's review of the application. So those are only the limited issues to which the planning board, to which SECRA has been reopened. And based upon a memo from the town's planner, it involved the land of the property because the configuration of the structure was changed, which I understand reduced the footprint and also the square footage of the expansion of the structure. It also increased the buffer area from one of the setbacks on the western property line. And as a result, there was a retaining wall that was originally proposed to be 22 feet. Now it only has to be 10 feet. They also had to relocate the parking area and a detention basin. And they're going to put some additional conifer trees and shading along the eastern, western sides and the northwest property line. And they will also reduce the impacts to steep slopes by making these changes. They're removing fewer trees and adding more trees. And the other areas were wetlands, which it doesn't appear there was any discernible change, and stormwater and flooding, which it appears is pretty much the same, other than an increase in the subsurface rainwater storage tank, which has been increased from 48,000 gallons to 66,000 gallons. So these are technical issues. Obviously, I'm not an engineer or planner, but based upon my review, that's the indication of what has been changed. So now the application is before the zoning board to address those specific issues that were changed as part of the planning board's review, and to issue a revised secret determination and to consider whether to grant the amended special use permit. One of the issues that came up before this board was this board's approval authority in all of this, and whether you were an interested or involved agency under SECRA. These are legally defined terms. An involved agency is by definition an agency with approval authority. Under this application as it's currently constructed, the town board and the town do not have any approval authority, so you are listed as an interested agency, not an involved agency. You do have the contract for sewer capacity, and that's a contractual relationship that you have with the applicant that comes with its own legal and contractual rights and obligations. But because it's not being considered in connection with this application, you are not considered an involved agency. So only those entities that are going to be making approvals or potentially making approvals based upon the current proposed application, which right now is the Newcastle Zoning Board, the Westchester Department of Health, the State Department of Environmental Conservation, the State Department of the local regional State Department of Environmental Conservation, and the State Department of Health are the only involved agencies at this point of the application. The other request that I believe was made was regarding holding a public hearing regarding this application, because the town board is not going to be approving anything with respect to it. I don't see a legal basis for holding a public hearing. The zoning board is going to be holding public hearings as they've reopened SECRA, so there is going to be an opportunity for public comment with respect to the application before the board that is the lead agency and one of the boards that will be issuing, if they determine to, approvals with respect to this project.
The third request was
With respect to water, I believe, and not providing the applicant with municipal water.
which we don't actually provide municipal water.
That's a
We don't,
village.
we buy our water from the village of Austining, so we're not a municipality that actually provides water, so we wouldn't be able to not provide water. I mean, I suppose at some point, if the village of Austining decided that it would provide water, there's an opportunity for us to provide a connection. But that would be something that the village would have to approve first. So it would, and at this point, as far as I know, the village is not interested in providing water.
So
And I'm
going-
not interested in providing a connection.
That's Councilwoman Taldman.
So at this point, it is open to the public. My understanding is that they are opening a public hearing. They declared their notice of intent to be lead agency at the beginning of February. The 30-day waiting period expired at the beginning of March. If the board did want to participate, you could ask your technical consultants to look at the revised application. You have submitted comments in the past to both the zoning board and the planning board regarding certain issues that were of concern to this board.
Correct.
And they
Or
were
ignored.
submitted and they were made part of the public record, to the extent, but beyond that, I can't speak.
Well, I mean, the first request that we made was for an
the-
EIS.
The production, yeah, for the applicant, because this is a type 1 action under SECRA, it is more likely to have a presumption that it would have a potential for a significant adverse environmental impact. That being said, it's not a legal requirement to do an EIS, but it is often done, and the regs do acknowledge that. However, in this case, the applicant did not do an EIS. They did an expanded EAF, meaning that they did certain studies and provided certain information that were attached to the EAF, that, based upon the review by the Town of Newcastle's consultants, apparently concluded that there was not the potential for any significant adverse environmental impacts that would require the production of an EIS. So, no, they did not end up doing an EIS, even
Which
though the
we were
board had
disappointed.
requested it.
Correct. And we also sent a letter about adjustment that they made at the last minute regarding
The bed number, the
So-
number of
sewerage.
beds.
The amount
So
of
that they
the
changed
flow.
the number of beds. The negative declaration that the zoning board had adopted says that if they do 118 beds, and forgive me if my numbers are a little bit off.
No, you're right.
If they're at 118 numbers calculated at 99 gallons per day, then they would be at.
Thousand.
No. then they would-
9,900, 9,900.
99 for each unit, for
Okay.
each bed.
Each bed.
Right, right,
And
right.
then they would end up at 9,997.
Right.
Which is gallons
Just
per day,
under.
which is just under the 10,000 gallons per day that the town board contractually agreed to provide to them. From.
That was on
their-
average.
Yeah, that was calculated based upon, I believe, average, not maximum.
Right.
And it was using a number that I believe was provided by the Department of Health, which was lower than the initial number that they were using. Again, not my area of expertise, but that's my understanding based upon my review. So in the neg deck, they said that it would be 118 beds in order to be under the maximum, and acknowledged that they could go up to 122 if there was some sort of agreement with the town to provide the additional capacity. However, the subsequent approvals have all appeared to reference the 122 number as being the approved number of beds.
And they haven't come to us to amend our,
Correct,
Not as far as I know.
correct.
so I think that's the thing. So there's still, so the current revised proposal is for 122.
That's what they're approved for. The neg deck does indicate, again, the negative declaration did say that in order to be under the capacity of what they can get from the town, they would have to be at 118.
Right, so they don't
they-
have to involve us as an approving agency?
Well, because if they stick with 118, the neg deck says that they can only go up to 122 if they get an agreement with you. So, right, they have the approval to go up to 122. Whether they can feasibly do it based upon your relationship, it seems to be a different issue.
Okay, do we know what the new number of trees, that old growth trees is coming down?
If you can give me a second and bear with me.
I mean, just because I think there's an environmental impact if you take down a couple of trees, like the storm just did. But, I mean, it was hundreds, so.
So the memo from the town's planner, director of planning, indicates the proposed amendment reflects a reduction in the volume of trees to be removed from 177 to 123 due to changes in the building footprint and the overall location adjustments regarding overall site work. The 282 trees that were approved to be planted have been increased to 303 trees. So
do
it
they
appears
have
there's a net increase.
Do they have a
Again,
width girth kind of thing like we do with ours? If you,
that would be something you would need someone with more expertise to weigh in on.
because, 300 saplings and, 100 huge trees like coming down is a difference. I'm just worried that, I think that this new proposal moved it closer to our park border by a little bit. I know they talked about a retaining wall, but if we're just talking about the revision seems to have moved it a little bit closer to our dog park.
Do you know,
Moved it east?
do you know which boundary that was?
I thought you said it moved.
It was the
when you just were-
east.
You said it moved it out
Yeah,
west.
it moved it,
You said it moved it east.
no,
That's what you just said.
Okay,
Read it.
The building footprint reconfiguration has increased the building setback from the western property line approximately 15 feet, from 61 feet to 86 feet.
right, so it moved it that way towards us a little bit. Which means moved it
So it moves it
east,
closer east.
which is a little bit towards
Got
our
it.
border.
Got it.
Which will be a bigger visual impact for us. But I'm not so worried about that as I think it requires a different area of blasting and a different amount of blasting. And, I mean, the studies have shown that it does drain into a reservoir. So I'm still really disappointed that they did not do an full environmental impacts. I'm never gonna be not disappointed, and angry about that. And, it's moving even closer, so.
Is there any?
If you
Weigh
want
in
to
on
have your
those.
technical consultants look at this and
Right.
weigh in, again, not my area of expertise, so I don't know what the technical impacts would be from the reconfiguration, other than what's been laid out by the zoning board's consultants.
Right.
And, you've provided comments in the past, you can provide comments again. And
They may have closed the public comment period already. Did they close the public comment period? Huh?
Written comments for another 2 weeks, I think.
So we are at the end of, we'd either have to do something quickly or,
Have that review. That.
yeah, I'd love to, actually go over there talk to him about or look at the drawing with him. Okay. Okay. All good. So do we need to have a conversation with them about how many beds they're approving and?
They haven't, us yet.
I just feel like they keep going around the rules and the regulations just constantly. And, they said, okay, it's only going to be 118, and then all of a sudden, back in the numbers, it's back at 123. They do half a study, but not this, they do this piece, but not that piece. And I'm finding it very hard to believe that they've done a thorough study, even though, they say they've got all the information because they do a half of this piece and a piece of that, and they say they're going to do this, and then they start working over there, and I find them to be a little, shifty, to say the least. And I would just I don't understand why even the SPCA has to do, they of course should do for a building, their environmental impact statement. I think everybody is going to have that much of an impact and take down that many trees, sea slopes and everything, should have to, give us the book and so that we can all see, like everybody
I
else.
can't
I build
disagree
a
with you.
deck, I have
I
to do
agree
that.
that would
it's
have
just
been
ridiculous.
what they should
And I
have
know
done.
we asked
It
them.
was- Yes,
Can
we
I-
did.
And there's also litigation pending regarding that issue.
Right.
And the seeker review and whether it complied with the procedural and substantive requirements. So I believe it is fully submitted before a court in Article 78 proceedings. So that issue is not done. There has been a legal challenge, and so a court still has to decide whether what they did was sufficient under the law.
Okay. And I know we already sent a letter twice, but
Okay. Anybody else have any?
No, I mean, I
here.
think that, we're in a somewhat challenging position. There's an article. I hope that either ascertain with certainty that the correct procedures were followed, or they need to institute an environmental impact study or go forward and do a more thorough study. So I just, it's frustrating because I'm not sure there's that much more that we can do at this point.
Yeah. I mean, again, we can send a letter. It can be listened to or not. That's what we can do. and, we may be able to say something about 118 versus 122. And maybe make a determination about 4 beds.
Well, and that's assuming that 118 keeps them under capacity.
Right.
Correct.
So do we have a monitoring availability or equipment?
I believe they're required to monitor, and they have that installed. I know
Okay,
that-
so can we see the numbers that they have now and then watch the increases?
I think we can.
Okay.
And
so-
request that. I mean, we can also, I think, I did speak to Paul about that a little bit, early, and I do think that we also monitor ourselves, so trust their monitoring.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to do that.
Yeah.
Our numbers seem to fluctuate.
And, yeah, and we can actually look at the highs and lows, whatever.
And then my understanding, we talked about this with Chris back a year ago, is that if they continuously go over, or if they go over the amount, then we have the ability to, can't shut them off, obviously, but we have the ability to fine them for straining our septic system or sewer system more than, so we would have the ability to fine them each time they went over.
We would have to take a look at the contract and see what
I thought
remedies are
that's
available
what you
to
had
you.
said.
I haven't looked at the contract in a long time. I'm not sure what the
Okay,
remedies are.
yeah,
but
it's been over a year
Yeah,
since we,
so
that part.
that's something we can certainly look into way in advance of this becoming, a practical issue.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Okay.
We have a plan in place. Where are we? Okay. Next. So for over a year now, issue of a potential assessment option that's available to the town of Austining due to us having done and doing annual revaluations or reassessments of the town as a whole, the homestead option, has drawn attention from condominium residents as well as a group calling itself Citizens for Fair Taxation, and those who support its claims. The town had decided not to consider the homestead option, and we have decided that, because to date, the research that exists on this issue indicates that it has the potential to negatively impact us in the long term, with little ability to turn back. Despite the town's efforts to demonstrate through presentations by New York State, Office of Real Property, as well as academic scholars that homestead is not the magic bullet, we continue to hear that the examples we have provided are apples and oranges. It was suggested to us that we conduct a study using examples that are more similar to Austining, residential versus commercial components, percentage of condominium units, geographic proximity, et cetera. And I wanted to have a brief discussion with our board on whether or not we think this is a worthy project, and if so, what information we're hoping to glean from such an endeavor. It could be that we determine that the status quo is as fair as we can get, maybe determine that homestead would help more than hurt, or maybe there is a middle ground that we've yet to consider. I wanted to open the floor and hear what my board colleagues are thinking about homestead and if we should pursue a study. Ready?
As the new person,
Yeah.
I'd be interested in a study that is specific to Austining.
Yes, I agree with that.
All right.
What we've heard are things that are close to us, more similar, less similar. It would be nice to know something very close to us, as in us.
Right. So, okay. Want to talk about that?
If we find something
So,
close.
I did have an opportunity to speak with our assessor as well as John Wallum, who has been to visit us many times over the last few years to discuss revaluation as well as to discuss homestead. And there's nothing that you can really do per se to predict what would happen, say, for Austining. There are other communities that have adopted homestead that are maybe in Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, that we could take a look at. I can't say that they're all going to look like us in terms of the breakdown of residential, condo, commercial, but there may be some that are more like us. There may be, again, some that are in closer taxing jurisdictions like Westchester, because it is unique, Rockland, Putnam.
That's what I was about. You know, because that's the
Right. Right, but that doesn't necessarily mean that having the breakdown of homestead, non-homestead doesn't have the same impact, just because the rates are higher or lower. But you know what? That would be, again, that would be something to look at. I did put together some thoughts on what we might want to consider as part of
Yeah, have some.
a study. So what those would be to research communities in Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, who have adopted homestead, as well as our own statistics to try to reach a more nuanced response to groups who are advocating pro and con for adopting this in Ossining, to evaluate before and after data to see the impact on taxes, tax rates for commercial versus residential, tax rates for condos, single-family homes, to look at indicators of local economy, and assess if the adoption of homestead had a positive, negative, or relatively neutral impact on local economies as a whole who have adopted homestead. And also, besides just looking at those hard numbers, to see what the impact is on beliefs and assumptions, because a lot of times those impact values. So that would involve having conversations with public officials, assessors, realtors, to glean some qualitative data. Also, there are costs involved. So if we, the town, were to adopt homestead, for example, there's a possibility that the Village of Ossining not to adopt it, Briar not to adopt it, or Briarcliff School District chooses not to, or Ossining School District, or any combination of that. So this one could say yes, that one could say no, this one, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of have to look at what the best and worst case scenario would be of that. And also there's costs then that are involved in how we manage these various rules.
Tax rules.
Tax rules, exactly. So there are costs, implied in adopting homestead. That's something that needs to be evaluated. We can look specifically at condo sales before and after in other municipalities.
And valuation.
One of the things about doing a study, because obviously everybody's concern is taxes, and we pay very, very, very high taxes here. There's no question. And the issue of equity in terms of paying taxes is an important issue, of course, too. But there's also other things that, when you have a piece of legislation that's designed specifically for one, to be implemented to affect one thing, and, whether it's ET-Pay or Homestead or anything, these are, unfortunately, there's unintended consequences to the benefits that these pieces of legislation can provide. So I think that the study might also allow us to explore what else might be an even better solution. What else might be, and then also I really think it's important that we dovetail this with other efforts, whether it's looking at shared services or other things like that, to really look at what we can impact, because the reality is we're somewhat limited to have the impact that we'd like to have at this level of government. But we do have to really take a comprehensive look at the things that we control and how we can do them better, because there probably is a significant amount of cost savings. But I think we shouldn't be, as we look at the existing legislation, we should also be looking to advance and improve as well. What? I said,
So there's a significant amount of cost.
I mean,
savings to be
there's
realized from what?
from if we examine, I'm sure that there's ways to figure out ways to do things better and cost save going forward.
But you're not saying not from homesteads.
No, 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 no. What
Okay,
I'm saying
that was a
is,
little
I'm sorry, collectively, like, we should be looking at this as a bigger part of the picture. Like, it's really, because it's really not just about homestead. It's about more equitable and more efficient use of tax dollars.
Right.
So as we study it, it may offer opportunities to look at things through a different lens because we haven't looked at them that way. And that's, I think, the challenge for government going forward. Most of these, pieces of legislation were written years ago. The way that we operate is somewhat, as a town, is somewhat anachronistic. So we do have an opportunity to really get a lot of input and put a different lens on this so that we can make more sustainable and better decisions that maybe don't have potentially negative consequences as well.
So, one of the things you said was, I know we have several real estate agents who've been very active in, trying to get us to enact homestead. Will we be consulting with them about some of the scope of the study?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We would be consulting with them as part of the study.
Right, so, I mean, they have some definite, they've been looking at it for a long time. They have some definite thoughts on things it would do to help our community. And,
Sure.
I know a lot of other things have come up and things it might do to hurt our community.
And that's why it says conversations with, I just mentioned
Good.
that, right? Realtors, assessors.
Right,
help
so that'd
establish
be built
qualitative
into the RFP and, okay. I think that's really important that we try to look at it from as many different viewpoints as possible. We also have a pretty high commercial tax rate as it is, for reasons that are kind of unbeknown to me. But I definitely, don't want to risk, I want to make sure that we're looking at the fact that we're starting a little higher than other rates in the other communities with that, and what would the effect of attracting new businesses and everything be if we were the top commercial rate in the county by X percentage, by Y percentage, and what do commercial realtors and businesses feel about if that happened to us, and the effect on the different types of homes and condos and what it does to the community as a whole. That sounds
Okay.
But are we going to, I mean, it seems very broad, but are we going to ask the person who does the study to study if everybody does it, if only the school systems back out, if every possible scenario?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know how many that is and how deep you can look at each one of those scenarios, but I think that we have to look at what the case would be if not everybody adopts, basically. So a best and worst case scenario, and then also evaluate if any adjustments were made in other communities that adopted homestead and why would they have done that. So kind of looking a little bit at
what remediation they've done.
if they had to, right, if they had to do anything to offset any of the impacts. Also, the Office of Real Property Services has offered to help with the study in whatever way they can to see if, for example, if homestead were hypothetically adopted for the 2018 roll, what the resulting tax distributions would look like in scenarios broken down by municipality, like we just discussed, if this one adopts, if that one doesn't, so they could help with that. And then maybe offer some sort of predictive scenarios based on the health of the economy. Adopt homestead and Ossining and the economy improves, stays the same, depressed, what would it look like for condo sales and rates, commercial rates, residential rates, et cetera. So
Sounds nicely comprehensive.
I think that will hopefully kind of discuss a lot of the different issues that could come along with, taking something like this and deciding, that if that was ever something that we wanted to decide to adopt homestead, it would give us more information as to why we would do that. I can't say that
There was
I'm-
one other
I can't say that I'm ready to do that right now, but I think that, again, having more information never hurts.
And John William had said, can we explore the difference in, if we were to keep our tax rates flat with legislation, but the other group, like the school district can't because of, they'll take that all into account. And the difference would be, like, if we were able to maintain the town rate at a more equal taxation between the commercial and the residential, but then the school district couldn't do that.
Correct.
So, yeah,
That's
so they
right.
look into all that. And
Right,
make-
the
and
school
see the
district doesn't have the
differences.
same ability as
They
a
don't
town
have the
does.
same ability to do that, so they'd look
Correct.
into all, okay.
Right, right. And then, just again, I mean, we are considering all of this in a study. That doesn't impact anything. And
Right.
the study's most likely going to take, I think, at least 6 months because it's very detailed. So we would have to allow quite some time to get back any results and so everybody.
Sort of,
Well,
and
I mean, I can
and
just
what
tell
wanna
you that,
know is
yeah.
why are we doing this again now? If
So, I mean, I can tell you that from all of the meetings that we had and the outcry from, the condominiums, that that is absolutely the impression that you would get. But we received, I think, over 500 postcards of people who said that we should adopt Homestead. So that was actually considerably more than the number of people who said don't adopt Homestead. We know that the condominiums could probably easily outrank that number of 500. But, again, from the feedback that we received, we're trying to be
I think what's important too is that, look,
reasonable.
there's a vested interest because the effective homestead, and this is something we're very, very concerned about, can really have a significant impact on increasing condominium taxes. So we don't want to do unnecessary harm.
Correct.
The other issue is that homeowners themselves are very tax burdened too and pay very high taxes. So to try to really look at what's best going forward, again, a lot of the tools that we have to work with, the legislative tools, aren't necessarily the best fit for the issues that we have here in Ossining, which is a relatively unique community. So because there is increasing awareness amongst the public in general, amongst homeowners, about the options, and there's a lot of information out there. It's a very complicated issue, and this gives us an opportunity to really look at what are the impacts. But really, the bigger issue is how do we do things more effectively and efficiently? If we don't look at it, we're not going to know. So this is in my mind, this is a good opportunity to, even if the study is specific to Homestead and its impact, what it'll do is create a higher level of engagement. Because at the end of the day, if we really want to have change in the policies that affect our taxes, we have to really understand them. And not very many of us do. It's very, very complicated. So it's a good opportunity to bring more engagement, to look at things from different perspectives, to get a better understanding, and to really make sure that whatever decisions we make, we may decide to make collectively as a community going forward, that that it's the most positive good, as opposed to harming any one section of the community disproportionately. You're welcome.
I think we have a consensus, though, that we're probably forward with the, but I do have a sense that Councilman opposed to it, so I just want to make that note. Is that true or not? I don't know. Okay. Okey-doke. Right, and we don't actually have the proposal yet. We don't know exactly what that's gonna cost, so we're gonna
Put that out.
together and find out what that cost is, and then evaluate. Okay? All right. So, that said, I think that we have a short. No, we don't. Wait, I'm skipping an important last item and a large item, which is that.
Special meeting.
No, we do have a special meeting. But before that, we have the Town of Austin Employee Handbook Revision, first reading. Don't know, but I know you guys all have a copy of it. I know I have a copy too. I didn't know if you had a chance to take a look, but if you haven't had a chance to take a look, here's your opportunity to do so. I don't know, I'm gonna actually turn this over to Maddie.
I will
Because,
admit I haven't had a chance.
I'm hoping that she's had a little bit of a chance to look through this, and I haven't gotten fully through it yet, but we haven't updated our employee handbook in a few years. And, what, are you just waiting until everybody quiets down? Okay, okay. Thanks, everybody, have a good night, and please be safe in the storm. We didn't get to talk about storm, but as you guys are leaving, you know, we anticipate that the town is actually going to be closed tomorrow because the village is closed, except for our emergency personnel, our highway parks, and guys are going to be out there plowing and keeping the roads safe for everybody. We have weathered a very tough week. We anticipate another, at least one. So we are grateful for everybody just being patient and doing their best, and the community center will be open tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to warm, to charge, etc. The pool will not be open tomorrow, and as I mentioned, village and town government will not our village and town hall won't be open tomorrow, and our employees are not expected to come in except if they're for emergency services that we provide. If you do have any issues, please do call 911 if it's an emergency. Call our local police department if there's anything that's glaring, or you can also call our town highway department. And I have our police number in my head, which is 941-4099, and the town highway is
941-2241.
941-2241. I usually just call Michael's cell phone. And yes, and I just let you know that we will be checking messages all day remotely, and you may see me out plowing. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. On a plow
Not
truck.
actually plowing.
Not actually plowing.
Not actually
Ms. Zahach. No, I
Okay.
will not be actually plowing.
I don't think the
Just
union would like that.
giving my support and watching all that snow get put someplace. So please don't leave your cars in blocking your driveways. Please don't leave your cars in the roads. There's no overnight parking in the town. There's a snow emergency in effect for the village, so that means that there's no overnight parking on designated streets. And I'm just making that now since so many people were leaving, but since everybody's already pretty much left, I will now turn it over to Maddie for a brief description of the updates that have been done to our employee handbook.
Sure. So I am so excited that this project is finally done because it reminds me of, I think this was born of another visit to the Association of Towns where one of us sat in a workshop that said, boy, you really need all these policies in your employee handbook. And I was like, I don't think that we have half of those. So we got in touch with our labor council and they said, okay, for a very reasonable flat fee, we'll be very happy to produce that for you. And that was back in 2016. So it's taken an awfully long time to get it together, but from what I've seen so far, and admittedly, I have skimmed through everything. I've not read every single policy cover to cover. I'm very, very happy with what they've come up with. And this is a 90 some odd page document. So again, we're going to be looking at this for quite a while. What is important to mention is that even if the board said tonight, yeah, we all read this, we're ready to vote on it, let's go, we still need both of our unions to sort of give a thumbs up. The good news is that many of the policies, specifically the first ones mentioned, so I'm just going to kind of go through the list very quickly, just so the public is aware. Many of these policies have been in place in the town of Ossining for many years already, so they've already been adopted by the town. So it's sort of the more discretionary ones that are new to the handbook, and some of them have been tuned up a little bit just to stay in compliance with state and federal standards. So the table of contents lists the Equal Employment Opportunity Affirmative Action Policy, Oath of Office, Code of Ethics, Americans with Disabilities Act, Unlawful Harassment, Workplace Safety/Violence, Work Badge Policy, Reimbursement of Town Business Expenses, Policy Governing the Use of Computer and Telecommunication Systems, Confidential Information, Vehicle Usage, Driver's License and Insurance Requirements, Personal Appearance and Dress Code, Solicitation and Distribution, Smoking. I know our highway superintendent is very, very excited about that policy in particular. Drug-free workplace and drug-free awareness, Department of Transportation controlled substance and alcohol testing, which is 20 some odd pages by itself, Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, Affordable Care Act, Healthcare Marketplace Policy, Open Enrollment Policy, Bloodborne Pathogens Policy, Confined Space Policy, Hazard Communication Policy, Rights of Nursing Mothers, Leave for Prostate and Breast Cancer Screening, Military Leave, Blood Donation Leave, Leave for Volunteer Firefighters and Volunteer Emergency Responders, Leave to Vote, and Deduction from Pay Policy for exempt employees. So there's definitely an awful lot to look at here. But like I said, some of them are things that we've all seen before, that each member of the board had to sign off on when they started employment with the town, whenever it was that they started. So some of this should look familiar. If there are any specific questions that I'm not able to answer, I will certainly bounce them back to Labor Council. So even if you don't have any questions right now, if you haven't really had a chance to comb through it in detail, feel very free to send me an email and I'll bounce it right along to Craig if it's not something I can answer. But this is probably the first of several pass-throughs we're going to do on this. I'm hopeful that we can get it adopted before summer, because it would be really nice to have all of our employees get a copy and sign off that they've received it and get it bound and fancy looking and get it to use.
Good. Talk to me about what a confined space policy is. I really don't
Oh, boy.
understand that.
Okay, so confined space I can actually talk about reasonably intelligently. Confined space is basically mostly for our highway and parks department and our cemetery guys. So when they are going below ground to a certain point, they have to make sure that the hole that they're going into is shored up and
Oh, okay.
that they have the proper equipment to test for gases that are in the ground and the harnesses are working properly. The town has been working for several years now with an ex-volunteer firefighter out of Chicago who we actually got put onto by the Village of Ossining. And the guys really like him an awful lot. And he comes once a year, and we have a confined space van that lives over at the highway department that has all our equipment. I think the last year that they did it, they went over to the water treatment center and did sort of like a workshop to sort of teach everybody how to use your harness and what all the specifications are. Luckily, it's not something that our guys have to use too terribly often in the town, but it is something that they're required to know how to do in the event that they do need to.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Cemetery go. They have to.
There are some of those confined space uses, they have like a box that they set down, they got their hole and they set the box in there so that the walls don't fall in on them.
There are certain shoring and trenching standards also that have to be followed. But like I said, most of the work that's getting done in the town, I mean, they're not going below ground. Physically, nobody's going into the ground, and that's really what it comes down to.
Great.
I'm not
Couldn't
all,
imagine what,
yeah.
I didn't realize it was digging a hole.
Some of our cemetery guys may have to go down.
That's what I was saying.
That's sort of why, since they've become town employees, I think in 2015 or 14, we have tried to include them in that training. There could be a time when they would need to know how to do that for sure.
Councilwoman John.
I'm not all the way through it, but I got to the work badge policy part. Is that something people are actually doing in the building, wearing? I don't recall everyone
Yeah,
seeing
we're a little-
badges, and we certainly don't have.
Yep. Mr. Wiltshire probably has his badge with him tonight. Do you? Yeah, he sure does. We got a little behind on getting the photographs taken, and there was also, I don't want to say a bit of controversy, but there was a bit of a disagreement about what information should actually be on the badges. Should it be first names only? Should it be last names only? Should it be first and last names? Should it say what department you work in? Should it say for how long you've worked there? So that's something that we have not revisited in a while, and I would very much like to. And I know, a lot of new employees from the last year, they've said, hey, everybody else has these really cool badges, and, I would like one, especially for the folks in our senior nutrition program. They're going to, the homes of,
Right.
of elderly folks,
Right,
and
it would
it
be
would be
good to
great
have
if
a
they would be able
badge.
to identify themselves as
Just
such.
from a safety perspective.
Yep, absolutely. And then as well as, the highway and parks guys, we had some issues, because it's not really safe for them to be wearing it on a lanyard around their neck because they're operating machinery and so on. So keep it in your wallet, but then they don't carry their wallet around. So, I mean, there are a couple of.
Put it on their hard hats that they should.
Yeah, for sure. So there are some nuances that we have to work out, but nothing insurmountable. It's just honestly a question of time, and getting it done. But certainly it's something that, we would like to put into place and keep up with regularly.
Okay.
Continuing conversation.
So our continuing conversation, please feel free to read and send in and submit any comments, suggestions, concerns, or questions that you have to us. And we will continue this policy manual, and like Maddie said, hopefully we can have something in place this summer. All right, so moving right along, come up to announcements. Oh, we're going to make a motion to go into our special meeting. Could I have one?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? A roll
Maddie, I didn't oppose.
Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick roll call. Councilwoman DeTore,
Present.
Councilwoman Shaw,
Present.
Councilwoman Feldman,
Present.
Councilman Wiltshire,
Present.
and Supervisor Levenberg.
here. Okay, so starting right along, I'm just going to do some brief announcements. Although they're not as brief, but I think I covered a little bit about what we were talking about regarding our storm. The good news is most of our town residents have had their power restored. There are still a handful of spots that do not yet have power back. Some of them, most of them are expected to be up and running shortly, but there are definitely a couple that are complicated and are going to take a bit longer. The crews that are in the county are here to stay through the storm. And I do know that, I did hear that St. Augustine's was back up this evening, so that's good news. Con Ed has assured us that they'll keep crews through whenever. They have had a lot of mutual aid just come in the last day and a half. They didn't have their mutual aid come in until the last day and a half, though, because of the nor'easter impacting such a wide swath of the Northeast. So the crews that they were counting on getting, they didn't. But as you all know, the snow is coming. So depending on which model you're following, we could start getting precipitation as early as 10 p.m. tonight, which is in about an hour. Serious snow is expected to come around rush hour tomorrow morning, unfortunately. And it seems inevitable that we will have more than 6 inches of accumulation on the ground, because it's supposed to come down, I think, about an inch an hour starting at around 10 a.m. And that's before all is said and done tomorrow evening, possibly as much as 1.5 feet. The Village of Ossining has declared a state of emergency, a snow emergency, as of 6 p.m. this evening, Tuesday, March 6th, which will remain in effect until further notice, which means that stopping, standing, or parking is prohibited on designated snow emergency streets, which are clearly marked. And if you leave your car there anyway, it will be towed, as it will obstruct the village DPW from keeping the streets clear for emergency responders. There is a list on our website as well as on the village website of all the different streets, so I'm not going to go through those. The village said that they have made the decision to close offices for non-essential personnel for tomorrow, Wednesday, March 7th, and the town is planning to do the same. We also ask that folks observe our regular Town of Ossining parking restrictions, which are in place until March 31st, and not park your car on the streets overnight. The police will be enforcing this rule during the snowstorm in all the town neighborhoods to ensure the safe passability of our roads, so please help us help you. In addition, here's some information that you might like to know. Dry ice continues to be available that Con Ed is providing in Yorktown at the Kmart Shopping Center and at the New Rochelle City Hall's backlot until 8 p.m. tonight, which you missed for tonight. But I do believe that, well, depending on the storm, they may move it again if we have more information. We are planning to put out another blast tomorrow with helpful information at some point during the day. Village of Ossining will open the Caputo Center, as I mentioned, starting at 9 a.m. and will remain staffed until 9 p.m. All amenities besides the pool will be available. The town's senior nutrition program delivered extra meals to our homebound seniors today because they will be closed tomorrow. We're hopeful that we will be open at our normal time on Thursday, March 8th, but please do check here and on the town's Facebook page for updated information as the storm progresses, and here is our town website, townofaustining.com. Be sure to charge up all devices in case of power outages. Fuel up your car. Make sure you have plenty of flashlights, batteries, and bottled water on hand. Consider downloading the Con Ed app to your smartphone. You'll need your account number handy to set it up for the first time, so now would be better than later. Please do your best to stay off the roadway so our plows can keep them clear for emergency responders. If you absolutely must travel, be sure to keep extra clothes, blankets, a flashlight, snacks, and water in your car in case you get stuck, which absolutely could happen. If you have elderly neighbors nearby, please do your best to check on them, especially because oftentimes they don't receive any of these information memoranda. If you do have a power outage, call 1-800-75-CON-ED or report it through the app or send a text saying REG, R-E-G, to outage. I don't exactly know how that works, but go ahead. What? That's the number? O-U-T-A-G-E. O is the number. Okay. Call 911 to report an outage. Calling 911 to report an outage is not appropriate, as it ties up the state police who are working on serious emergencies. Call 911 only if you have an emergency. Please steer clear of any and all downed wires. If you see a wire down, call Con Edison first, and then call the local police at 941-4099 if you're in Ossining. We will keep you posted throughout the storm as we get more information. Although it may seem premature to talk about cleanup, we have found that we simply cannot stress this enough. Once the snow has stopped falling, please do not shovel your snow into the road or move your car to the edge of your driveway or into the street to clear it. Besides making more work for our plow guys who have been working practically nonstop for days, it also endangers your neighbors and first responders on the road. Just to say, it's simply not cool. If you have a contractor shovel or plow you out, please stress this to them as well. I'm quite sure you will be more polite than we will if they're caught in the act. So the other good news is that power has been restored to the Ossining Public Library, so you can grab a speed read and maybe an HBO series on DVD and retire to your sofa, although that would have been today because tomorrow I'm guessing the library is going to be closed. So if you weren't able to do that yet, I'm sorry. Also, we did have a late-breaking update this afternoon. We learned that Suburban Carding will not be picking up recycling along Route 3 tomorrow. If this applies to you, which means if you are a resident of an unincorporated town condo complex, your pickup will be moved Thursday this week. I was asked earlier after we sent this blast out if that pertains to the village as well, and I don't know the answer to that question, so I'm not sure if they're going to put that off or not. I think it probably depends on what the weather's like first thing in the morning. And we'll be in touch with you tomorrow around midday with an update on the condition of our roads. If we have any news, we'll help you ride out the storm. And a bit of fun stuff after a rocky start due to the rough weather last weekend. The Ossining Arts Council and Westchester Collaborative Theater will team up for the next several weeks to present their living art event at the Seymour Firehouse on Main Street. Since we don't know quite what shape will be in Friday, please do make sure to check social media before heading out to ensure there have been no weather-related complications. I think it's safe to say that applies to all events coming up. Another one of those will be Thursday night's Ossining documentary and discussion series at the Boudars Theater, where they will be screening a special Bring Your Daughter to the Documentary showing of the Empowerment Project, shining the spotlight on 8 positive and powerful women around the country. I wasn't sure it was county or country, because I didn't actually see I didn't see the advertisement. This event is scheduled to begin on Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. at the Austin Public Library. But again, please check social media to make sure there are no last-minute changes. On March 16th, very exciting, the Bethany Arts Community, housed in the former Maryknoll Brothers building on Somerstown Road, will be hosting their first local artists exhibition. Come check out this beautifully restored space and meet the fantastic folks who have chosen to make Austin their new home. Finally, Extravaganza is coming up on Saturday, March 31st, starting at 10 a.m. at Ryder Park, before moving to Nelson Sitting Park at 12 noon. Bring your children aged pre-K to 4th grade for Austin's annual egg hunt. Be sure to bring a basket or bag to collect your eggs. Make sure you have your camera to get a picture with the big bunny. This event is rain or shine. If it gets rained out, meet at the community center at a time TBD. And I will say that there's one more announcement, which is that on March 24th, there's going to be a March for Our Lives rally at Hill Park, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit in our meeting right now, and I anticipate that we are going to pass this resolution, so I just want to mention it as part of our announcements. Now, are there any other announcements from any of my colleagues? Want to mention if? Okay, so moving right along, board resolutions.
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby authorizes the supervisor, at the advice of the town assessor, to sign a maintenance agreement with CAI Technologies, 11 Pleasant Street, Littleton, New Hampshire, to publish the town's GIS maps and provide usage and technical support for the 2018 calendar year, as per their proposal dated October 3rd, 2017.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
And I believe our assessor talked to us a little bit about this when he was here presenting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Austining hereby authorizes the supervisor, at the advice of the town assessor, to sign an agreement with CAI Technologies, 11 Pleasant Street, Littleton, New Hampshire, to provide professional GIS services according to the specifications, terms, and conditions contained in their proposal dated January 24th, 2018.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Whereas on March 24th, 2018, the students and families of March for Our Lives will hold a rally in Washington, D.C. to demand that their lives and safety become a priority and that we end gun violence and mass shootings in our schools today.
I'm having some trouble.
And whereas to date, more than 440 related events have been scheduled on March 24th in different locations around the world. I'm being told by council that this isn't the most up-to-date copy of this resolution.
Okay.
All right,
Do we have, I think I have a copy of it. I can read it
I might too.
from my phone then. Second. Is it the one that you sent yesterday, last night?
Was there a revision since then?
Last night, or was it
I sent the revision last night.
last night, right? That was
Yeah,
the
I
last
thought
one, right?
This was the one. If it is okay
Got
with
it.
the board and with council, I will read it off of the email that was sent. I think the revisions are pretty minor.
Substantively, it's.
Yeah, I mean, I do
Uh-huh.
have it. You have it or not? 'Cause I do have it.
Not
You read it?
yet. I
Got it?
will shortly. Revise resolutions. Here we go. Okay, sorry about that.
Want me to start?
I have it right now. No, I don't. Yep, go
Okay.
ahead.
So whereas on March 24th, 2018, the students and families of March for Our Lives will hold a rally in Washington, D.C. to demand that their lives and safety become a priority and that we end gun violence and mass shootings in our schools today. And whereas to date, more than 440 related events have been scheduled on March 24th in different locations around the world. And whereas the town board has been made aware that a large number of residents of Austining and neighboring communities may wish to participate in this event in their local communities. And whereas the town board fully supports this important message and wants to provide members of the public with a location within the town to participate in this rally in a safe and orderly manner. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Austining will, with the village of Austining, co-sponsor a local March for Our Lives rally to be held on March 24th, 2018, from 12 to 2 at Engle Park in Austining. Correct?
Yes.
There might have been a tiny adjustment at the very end, which March for Our Lives to be held March 24th, 2018 at 12 noon at Lewis Engle Park. Okay,
And we'll revise the agenda to put the
correct.
revised resolution.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so if we want to have any discussion, we were approached by a member of our public who is volunteering as part of this larger organization to put marches on all around the world and the country, I guess. This seemed like something that good to have happen in a manner. So the town are interested in sponsoring it. I believe that the school district has also been approached and will also be involved. But we're not including that in the resolution because I'm not 100%. So, and I think that the village is probably going to take this on tonight as well. We did look into it because they did express their interest, and I believe that they're also part and parcel. So there's not any further discussion. I'm very excited that this is happening. Thanks so much to Meadows Ryan for bringing this for the board, and I do believe actually that the organization March for Our Lives is also town and villages. They are going to be able to provide insurance, which is great. Just learned that either today or yesterday, so. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay.
Okay. With that said, unless there's anything else, I will wish everybody safe travels and ask for an adjournment into executive session to discuss personnel and advice of counsel.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Please be safe out there, everybody. Please be aware of still some tough infrastructure issues, even though we're in pretty good shape here in most of the village of Austining and town outside. I know that Briarcliff really is still struggling, so please be careful. And please do know that your public officials are doing all that they can to bring as many resources as we can to bear to bring us back up and running and get everybody fully restored to power. And we hope that this next bout of weather is not going to make it a whole heck of a lot worse. But if so, we will continue to work on everybody's behalf to make sure that we have resources for you. Thanks, everybody, and have a good night and a good week. We'll see you next week. Are we going to see everybody next week? On March 13th? Right back here at 8688 Spring Street for our regular legislative session. Thanks and have a good night.